Hey everyone, it's Isabel. So as you all know, this video is about me interviewing some of my peers that actually did get to go to the BLM protests. And I think it's amazing to see people standing up for this cause. And I also do want to remind everyone that even though it's been a really long month, it is still Pride Month, and we have to recognize the LGBTQ plus community as well. Now, with that being said, the LGBTQ plus community has actually taken a really big step forward in helping to advocate for the BLM movement, and I think that's amazing that these two groups have actually sort of teamed up with each other to sort of come towards a common goal, being, equality, tolerance, and acceptance for everyone. And I think that's amazing that these two groups have been able to stand with each other in solidarity for this movement, and I think that's great. And we also have to keep in mind that these two groups have, suffered from discrimination and mistreatment both in the past and still today in the present. So I think it's great to see that they're both standing with each other in the issues that they both suffer from. So I will be leaving links down below for both the LGBTQ plus community and the BLM movement, just for awareness, donations, even signing petitions. So make sure to check those out. But yeah, without further ado, enjoy the video. There's a lot of things going on circulating the BLM movement, and I do know that you went to one of the protests. Do you mind telling me where you went?
Yeah, so I went to this protest in Miami. We went to FIU, which is one of the local universities here in Miami. So we pretty much just walked around the FIU campus. We were kneeling for 8.5 minutes, which is how long the officers were on George Floyd's neck. And it was just a really powerful thing. We were all together, spreading awareness about it.
So the important one was the one here in Boca Raton, the one by Glades Road. And it was important because it was student-led. We mostly just held signs, and we voiced our opinions. We gave out chants. We gave speeches, and my primary reason for being there was a citizen journalist. I love getting into the action with that stuff, and really like trying to be in that moment to see how the people are feeling, how they're expressing their opinions, and just kind of like talking around with the people and getting an idea of their perspective.
So I know that you went to a Black Lives Matter protest. Do you mind telling me where you went?
This was in Tampa at Curtis Hickson Park, and then we walked all around downtown. Lots of people had signs. I had signs. My friends had signs. Almost everyone had a sign actually. And then at one point, it was raining really hard when we were walking, so everyone's signs got ruined and wet if it wasn't made out of that plastic outside sign material. Like if it was just made out of cardboard or something, we ended up throwing them away, but somebody had made tons of signs from their house, and halfway through was handing them out to everyone, so many signs, so everyone could just get a new sign. So that was cool.
So do you know if the police got involved either before, during, or after you were at the protest?
They were there. There was a police presence there, through different spots of where we walked. But they just were kind of sitting there minding their own business. They didn't get in our way, and nobody went up to them. We didn't get in their way.
The police did actually come, and they were very nice when they came. They weren't against us or anything. They just kind of came and check it out, make sure everything was kept, like I said, peacefully, and that there was no property damage, which there wasn't. Everyone there was very understanding of that.
There were police there, but pretty much just to make sure that nothing got out of hand. And it wasn't until after I had left, I actually saw on Twitter people that were like, if you are at FIU, make sure you leave now. This was at around 7 p.m. when most of the protesters had left. They had so many police marching on the streets to get the remaining protesters out of there.
So do you know if anything got violent, when you were there? Were there any counter protesters?
No counter protesters, nothing got violent. It was just, everyone was really peaceful. Everyone, of course, we were angry. A lot of us were like, dude, like, we shouldn't have to be protesting for like basic human rights. It was just one of those things that, it was peaceful. There wasn't really any anger. Of course, people were angry at the system, but
At the one in Boca, no, there was no counter protesters. But I did go to another protest again as a citizen journalist, and I on the other side of the street was another protest party group that was actually against not Black Lives Matter, but their agenda was having all lives matter, which is very controversial when you think about it, and there are a lot of people that disagree with them. But really, it's important to know that it's coming to the point where they're taking where everybody's getting an opportunity to voice their opinion, and that's really what's important.
It was like super like peaceful. Everybody was just there for like one common goal. Everybody was behaving, like nobody was starting riots or anything.
Why is the Black Lives Matter movement so important?
I am definitely for Black Lives Matter, but the thing is, I'm also for all lives matter. But with today's day and age, you can't really pick one, because then as soon as you say all lives matter, then everybody in the Black Lives Matter community is gonna naturally assume that you're against them, which is not true. And everybody in the all lives matter is going to assume that if you're in the Black Lives Matter, that you're against all lives matter, which again is not true.
the whole thing with Black Lives Matter is not that, oh, Black lives are more important than, white lives or brown lives or, Asian lives or any of that stuff. It's that these people have been oppressed for so long and they haven't gotten anything in return. They haven't gotten reparations for like 300 years of slavery and like 60, 70 years of Jim Crow and all of the stuff that's happening today with police brutality. We still have a system in place that makes it hard for these people to even, get a job. They're arrested, at like 2 or 3 times the rate that white people are arrested for the same crime. The police were initially created, like, they weren't to protect the citizens. They were to catch like slaves that were escaping. That's where our first police force came from. So that's why I really think that this whole movement is important, because I am a minority. I am a Hispanic. I am gay, but like I know when I have I am privileged. I am a white passing Latina.
Obviously, you're very passionate about the Black Lives Matter movement. Why is this? What do you hope to achieve through advocating for the Black Lives Matter movement?
Oh God. I mean, that's like a hard question, but also it's a simple question. Like I think I want hopefully what everyone supporting this movement wants, which is just equality and the end of systemic racial violence towards Black people. Like I just want them to have what I have that I didn't even earn. I was just born with it, So that's the goal.
When it comes down to solving the problem of systematic racism, I really think that we shouldn't just focus on just the African American community, but focus on ending race as a whole. No longer talking about African Americans, or no longer talking about white supremacy, but rather fixing the initial problem, which is reforming the police system. Because that is the common trend in everything. You have the police system getting funded way too much money, and what happens is they have all this money, but they don't know how to use this money. They're not providing correct training. I want to see people get away from the notion that everybody is against everybody else, because that is the common trend here. As soon as you have someone of a different race being treated differently, then everyone jumps to the conclusion that it's because of racism that certain event is taking place.
So the first thing is that Breonna Taylor's, like, the police who killed her need to be arrested and convicted for murder, because it is absolutely ridiculous about how clear cut and dry her case is. Like, there should be no question. They went into her home and murdered her. There are so many other cases, literally with Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman, who's out walking free and signing Skittles and stuff for people because he's seen as a hero. There needs to be major reform within the police, with, you know, our hiring process and all of this stuff, where, you know, like, Black people don't really get paid as much as white people do, especially Black women. Doctors need to have like racial biasing courses because Black women are often not taken as seriously about their pains, about, you know, the pain that they're in, than white women. And a lot of Black women die during childbirth because of complications, because the doctors disregard them. You should be required in, you know, your university with whatever thing you're, you know, you're specializing in. You should be required to take, you know, African American history, after African American studies, so that you realize, you know, what it is that these people have gone through for so long. Prison reform in general, like how there are so many Black people in prisons for petty crimes. Yeah, that's the one thing I really hope for, is that we can give them like the rights that they deserve, because it's ridiculous.
Have you been advocating on social media, or what have you seen other people doing?
I don't know. I haven't really been posting too much on my Instagram, but I definitely have been like commenting, sharing, supporting like other people's posts that I see about this movement. And like all my friends are pretty like-minded individuals. Like we pretty much have the same goals and like views on the world, which is maybe why we're friends. So I see them posting lots of things about it all the time, which I obviously like, comment on, things like that.
Do you think that there's still issues with people's races and how they're treated? Like, do you still see that there's like discrimination towards people to, like, you know, that belong to certain races or cultures? Or do you think that, like what you were saying earlier, it's just there's a different problem that doesn't really have to do with race?
The thing is, I definitely do think that there are people out there that are still in the racist mindset. And that's just because of culture. Really, racism is not a problem. Society-wise, yes, there are people that are still racist, and unfortunately, you can't do anything about that. You know, if they want to be that way, then they can be that way, because that's just how they want to be. But the important thing is that if something were to happen that is racist, um, that person has to take action towards it. And it becomes a problem when they do take an action towards it and nothing is done about it. Which is why you have the Black Lives Matter community, you know, really stepping up. And again, that's one of the benefits of living in this country, because when that problem does occur, when there is a problem with the system, then you can gather together and have the freedom to protest and get your voice heard.
Hey everyone, so before I close out the video, I do want to remind everyone that I do have those links down below. Just like my peers said, there's still a lot of change and reform that we have to make, and a lot of goals that we have to meet. So with everyone's help, I'm sure we can get there. But anyways, thanks again for watching. If you guys want to follow me on my social media, I will also leave that down below. But yeah, thanks again for watching, and I will definitely see you guys soon. Bye!
This is America. Don't catch you slipping now. Don't catch you slipping now. Look what I'm whipping now. This is America. Don't catch you slipping now.